And we are back. Week number 236. 236 episodes of
The Horror Guys.
I'm Brian.
And I'm Kevin.
And we got 4 horror movies and a short for you this week, as always.
And 2 bonus films that we're kind of sort of going to mention.
Kind of, sort of.
Yeah.
What do we got?
We got 28 Days Later. And then that was so good that they went with 28 Weeks Later.
And when we were watching that, I joked they should do another one called 28 Years Later.
And they're
the
in the
very
process
next
of
week
doing
they
that.
announced that
Yep.
with that exact name.
That's coming, yeah. And a kaiju movie, Atragon.
Barely kaiju.
Yeah, sort of kaiju. Yeah, that's got a little bit of everything in it. Yeah. And a sci-fi action war movie with horror elements, heavily horror elements, called Overlord. And a classic called, that's a bonus one. The Monster on Campus and The Killing of a Sacred Deer are bonus ones.
Something like that.
Yeah.
Actually, the Overlord and Monster on Campus are the bonus ones. We will talk about Killing of a Sacred Deer.
That's not the order you have them here.
I know.
I'm reading the list.
I just put the
here.
long title last on the title.
Oh, okay. I see. Okay. Anyway, we're going to talk about these movies.
Yeah, but if you want to know more about Monster on Campus from 1958, oldie,
which was surprisingly good.
Or Overlord from 2018, which
I liked
wasn't.
a lot. Oh, I liked that a lot.
We have mixed opinions on Overlord.
Yeah, you need to watch that one for yourself and see what you think, because I thought it was a hoot. I thought it's just weird, and the action is good, and yeah, I liked it.
I'm having trouble remembering it at this stage. It's been like a week.
That's the super formula, the Nazi zombie super formula. They were sent there to destroy the radio tower, and it turns out there was a secret lab there also.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
And they've got a village where they're experimenting on. You know, I liked it.
They should have called it Mediocre Lord.
Oh.
Anyway, those are over at horrorbulletin.com. You can read the reviews on those. But this time we're going to talk about the other ones. A lot of zombies this week.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know what happened in the beginning, but 28 days later, back in 2002, it was directed by Danny Boyle, written by Alex Garland, stars Cillian Murphy, and this is so far back people kept calling him Killian Murphy because nobody had heard of him.
Is it Cillian?
I think it's Cillian.
Cillian. Okay.
Yeah.
I've been mispronouncing it. I thought it was Cillian.
See? Nobody still knows how to say the guy's name. He's been a star for 27 years. He's Oppenheimer. Haven't we heard anybody say his name lately?
No, not out loud.
Starring Mr. Murphy.
Yes.
Along with Naomi Harris, Brendan Gleeson, and Megan Burns, and I'm sure we pronounced those names right. Hour and 53 minutes, trailer in the show notes if you have not seen this classic zombie film.
Mm-hmm.
Spoiler-free, what happens?
Well, this was the movie that popularized the fast zombie idea.
There had been a few fast zombies before
But this was the first popular
This is
one.
a good
that
one, yeah.
really brought it to the public eye. The basic premise is unique, showing the very start of the disaster and then skipping ahead 28 days later, as the title hints. The cast, effects, and story are all really excellent.
Yeah, most zombie movies, it's like a comet flying over or something like that, and for some weird reason, the dead crawl out of their graves and attack people. This one is a lot more scientific and a lot more logical.
Mm-hmm. Science.
Also, with those slow-moving Night of the Living Dead type of zombies, how could those really take over living people? They're so slow and stupid.
They are so slow, yeah.
Nobody says that with these zombies.
Yeah.
Well, we get video feeds of some crazy carnage and rioting. A monkey is strapped to a table, being forced to watch a dozen monitors, all with ultra-violent scenes. Then the animal rights terrorists break in to release him, and the others like him, and a scientist walks in and catches them in the act, and warns that the chimps are infected and highly contagious. They've been infected with something called rage.
And these are folks that have the best intentions. You know, they feel that these animals are being exploited and experimented on harshly, and they're here to liberate the animals. Well, that doesn't go so well when they're infected. Yeah.
Well, they released one ape, which soon bites one of the activists. Within a few seconds, everyone there is either dead or infected with the rage virus.
And then we skip ahead to 28 days later.
That's where it comes from.
Uh-huh.
Jim wakes up in the hospital. He's hooked up to a bunch of machines. He's been in a coma for a long time. He gets up and sees that the hospital's a mess. He goes outside and finds that everything in London is deserted. He shouts repeatedly, but there's apparently no one in the city. He finds a newspaper with the headline, "Evacuation." Where did they go? Well, he goes into a church and finds hundreds of dead bodies. He yells out, "Hello!" and finally comes across someone who isn't dead.
Thank goodness, there's somebody else.
It's a priest who jerks and staggers toward him.
Not good.
The priest is clearly violently insane, so Jim runs outside. Other infected people chase Jim, and suddenly there are people throwing fireballs at the infected. Jim goes with them. What is going on here? Well, these two people are Selena and Mark, two surviving humans. Jim explains that he was in a bike accident and just woke up to all this. Selena talks about the virus that infected people's blood, and they tried to evacuate the cities, but it was too late. The army was overrun. There's no government, no police, no army, and no electricity. Well, they agree to go look for his almost certainly dead parents once the sun comes up. They get to Jim's house easily enough, and they find his parents' dead bodies. They took poison. Well, Mark tells his story, and it wasn't pretty. That night, Jim lights a candle, which invites an attack, but he's not injured. Mark, on the other hand, gets a cut with blood in it, and Selena hacks him to death immediately.
Yeah, the disease sets in very quickly.
Very quickly.
Yeah.
Selena says that if someone gets infected, you get 10 to 20 seconds to kill them before they go berserk. There's none of this arguing or hiding or pretending you didn't get bit.
Yep, it acts fast.
As it gets dark, they spot blinking Christmas lights way up in a skyrise window. They go to that building, and some infected chase them up the stairs, but a man in riot gear stops the attackers. They meet Frank and his daughter Hannah. They live in an apartment in the skyscraper, which is easy to defend. Frank seems nice, but he's running out of supplies. They hear a voice on the radio claiming to be a safe place just north of London. It's 2 or 3 days away. After a bit of a debate, the four drive north.
Yeah, and it is kind of a reasonable debate they have. They're
We're safe
secure
here.
and they're safe, but they can collect rainwater off the roof, and but foraging for food is dangerous and limited, and they're running out of supplies.
And I have forgotten, does the message just repeat?
Yeah,
Yeah, they might not even
it's
be
an
there when they
automatic.
get there.
Yeah, but they end up voting to go.
Yeah, and the car breaks down in a tunnel, and there are many, many rats there. What are the rats running from? You guessed it. They barely escape from the mob of zombies. Then they raid an untouched grocery store and continue on out of town. They stop for gas, and Jim checks out the inside of the place, running into an infected child which he beats to death with a bat. A bit later, they stop at a farm for lunch, and they decide to stay for the night, and Jim has nightmares. They resume driving and pass Manchester, which is on fire. The entire city's burning.
Seems like that would have been more of a problem. Didn't seem to be many fires going in London.
But it's been
Seems
28 days. Wouldn't a lot of the stuff have already stopped burning?
Yeah, but it was intact. There hadn't been signs of fires even.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they stop at a military roadblock, but everyone is gone. This is where the radio signal told them to go. Well, now what? Well, we see a crow eating a dead man's remains up high on a pole. Frank looks up, just as a single drop of blood falls and gets in his eye. And this is the coolest scene in the movie.
It is, yeah.
It only takes a few seconds for him to become an infected maniac. Jim is about to swing the bat when soldiers appear and shoot Frank full of holes. Yeah, he's just looking up and, whoops, you're suddenly infected.
That's all it takes.
You can't just avoid the zombies.
Yeah.
Jim, Selena, and Hannah go with the soldiers. The soldiers then take him to a compound where Major West is in charge.
And there was a moment earlier, too, where I was thinking that seemed like a bad idea. Jim is, trying to clean up when they get to the high rise. And because he's scruffy, he hasn't shaved in, 28 days. And he's kind of sweet on Selena, too, and, wants to clean himself up. So he shaves, but it's cold water and it's dark, and he cuts himself all up shaving. And I was thinking, as important as it is that you not get blood and guts in your own blood, just leave the stubble, Because he's got cuts all over his face. So he runs into, it's a gore
Something
fest.
splashes him.
Yeah, it's a gore fest bashing on the infected and, blood splattering everywhere.
If a drop in your eye will do it.
Yeah,
you're probably right.
I thought, just leave the stubble.
Yeah, usually it's a
don't
bite or something like that. But this
Don't
one
cut
here,
yourself
anything.
shaven and leave open marks right on your face right there. But yeah, it was a not mentioned or anything. But I thought that that's a bad idea.
Well, Major West is the one who's been broadcasting on the radio, but this place isn't what any of them had hoped for. At least it's safe. The whole compound is surrounded by landmines and snipers. Jim sees right off that these soldiers aren't strictly the disciplined type he was expecting. West even has an infected as a prisoner. He's waiting to see how long it takes for them to starve to death. And he's no Bud the Chud.
No, he's not.
He's not Bud the Chud. Chud was something else.
He's not Bud the
Bud
zombie.
was the zombie in the third one.
Yeah.
Well, they all sit down for a feast, but the eggs are rotten. Everyone talks, and it's all pretty depressing stuff. Suddenly, a landmine goes off and a siren blares. There's a very one-sided battle that the soldiers quickly win. One of the soldiers gets all cocky with Serena and is disciplined by the sergeant. Major West and Jim talk about who they've killed in the past. West's men were without any hope, so he promised he would provide women for them. Well, that's what the broadcast was all about. And there's a woman in the place now. Or two, if you include little Hannah.
Ew. And they...
ew.
They kind of do.
Yeah.
Yeah. Most of these soldiers are goobers and jerks. These are not good guys, most of them. West seems like a decent fellow who's trying, and he's got a couple guys under him, at least one guy for sure, that, seems like a decent fellow. Most of them are just jerks.
They're ready to revolt at any time.
Yeah, and you're not rooting for these soldiers.
Jim runs to get Selena and Hannah out of the place, but he's knocked out by one of the soldiers. Jim then gets handcuffed to a radiator along with a sergeant. The two are released and then led out into the woods, where somehow Jim gets away. He falls down and watches the contrail of an airplane flying way up in the sky.
So maybe it's just England, not the whole world.
Well, the soldiers start having their way with Selena and Hannah, and they get a minute alone, and Selena gives Hannah a handful of pills, but a soldier stops them before Hannah can take more than just a few. A siren goes off, and the soldiers stop what they're doing to investigate the big roadblock. Jim then kills one of the soldiers, and Major West runs into the woods after him. Jim returns to the soldiers' compound and releases Jones, the infected prisoner. He infects another, and things go downhill from there. Not only are there a growing number of infections in the building, but Jim is there too, and he's not happy. West returns and finds that things have gone badly in his absence. Jim and Selena are reunited, but then Hannah comes in and whacks him over the head, thinking he's infected. It didn't hurt too much, though.
No, good thing. She's all blitzed out on pills, so fortunately it was a weak hit.
The three run outside of the car, where they find West waiting. West shoots Jim, but Hannah finishes off West. They then ram the gate on the way out. 28 more days later, Jim wakes up in a bed. The dead are finally dying of starvation. Selena and Hannah have made a huge cloth banner to signal the overflying airplanes. This time, the plane sees them. Will they be rescued? I guess we'll have to wait for the sequel to find out.
I guess so, except you don't. They're not in the sequel.
I hear that they're going to be in the third one, if they make a third one.
Oh, okay.
This wasn't the first film with fast zombies, but it was the first to really take off and popularize the idea. I wondered halfway through the film, what do these infected people eat? They'd have all starved to death within a month, and these aren't magically undead zombies. If the comet makes the dead crawl out of the ground, they can, they're dead already, so starvation's probably not that big of a deal. Mm-hmm. These are just sick humans.
Well, and the 28 days later, again, it does show.
They do mention
most
some things later,
that they're starving out, It's probably just a super adrenaline, that they just go until they've got absolutely no tissue, no reserves left, and that could last for a while if they were that, that super hyped up,
Well, all the early wandering around in the empty London sets the stage perfectly for later in the film. By having Jim wake up for a coma, they were able to bypass all of the virus spreading part of the plot. It's the same thing The Walking Dead did. The main guy woke up after things had gone badly.
Yeah. Yeah.
The music really stands out as well, and it sets the mood for each scene. The ending takes a bit of time to set up, but it's very tense, and you really don't know if any of them will survive. Will that airplane see them? What will it do? Is the zombie everywhere? Why not? We'll never know.
We'll never know.
Oh, but then 28 weeks later, in 2007...
Oh, there's more.
Yeah, it was directed by Juan Carlos Fresnadillo, written by Rowan Jaffe, Juan Carlos Fresnadillo, and Enrique Lopez Lavin. Stars Robert Carlyle, not that guy whose name we can't say.
Right.
Rose Byrne, Jeremy Renner, and Harold Perrineau. Hour and 40 minutes. Trailer in the show notes. Spoiler free.
What happened?
Some time has passed since the last film. A matter of weeks, I would imagine.
28
and
of them.
things are getting back to normal. Right? Maybe. The infection only wiped out England, and they're bringing people back now that it's over, so it's all okay. Well, not quite. This one was good, but not as good as the first one. The effects were still excellent, and it's a blood fest. We didn't think the story was quite as good this time around. What happens?
Well, and I again with the bit of realism as far as the infection spreading, like a regular disease or a slow zombie plague. People going to get infected, and then they're going to travel on a train and a plane and on foot and car and everything.
But this one develops so quickly. It's not like you're going to carry it.
It's obvious. These people are not going to get on a plane and land in another country and then break out.
But even one accidental, blood test or something goes badly in, the United States or Africa or somewhere like that, it's going to spread real darn fast.
Well, they managed to not have that happen. It was only England, which is an island, so...
Yeah. Okay, well, what happens?
Don and Alice talk about their food supplies that are running low, and we see that they're part of a group of survivors that are holed up. They argue about one of the girl's boyfriends and whether or not he'll return. A child starts beating on the door wanting in. So Don opens the door and lets the kid in, like any decent guy would. And he says that his parents were trying to kill him, and there are loads of others who he led right to their hiding place.
Oops.
Yeah, great kid. The girl from before sees her boyfriend outside and immediately gets infected by him.
She sticks her fingers through the hole in the window and
honey.
He bites one.
Yeah. And things devolve quickly from there.
Very quickly.
Yeah, that's quite a frenetic scene. That opening is something. Yeah. Well, it turns out only Don gets away outside, and he's being pursued by loads of infected by this point. Finally manages to jump onto a motorboat and get away from them that way. And 15 days later after that, Great Britain was quarantined 28 days later.
Yeah, so what we just saw was at the very
basically
beginning.
13 days into the about the halfway point. Yeah, was the opening scene that we saw.
Yeah.
Well, mainland Britain was destroyed by the rage virus. 5 weeks after that, the infected have died of starvation. 11 weeks after that, an American-led NATO force enters London. 18 weeks later, we kind of get a summary here at the beginning. Mainland England is declared free of the infection. 24 weeks later, reconstruction begins. And 28 weeks later, like the title says, we're in London. American Doyle is a soldier on a roof, whining about not having anything to shoot. There's a bunch of bored soldiers just chatting on the radio. A group of returning evacuees arrives at the airport, even some children. Everyone coming in is screened for infection before they're allowed to return. They're heading to District 1 in the green zone.
But real estate prices are cheap.
Yeah, there's lots of empty buildings. Well, there are safe places and not so safe places through London, because there would still be, treacherous thing and, decomposing bodies, and regular diseases would be rampant, from that. So it is forbidden to cross the river and leave the safe zone, this area that they've cleaned up and sanitized and everything. And the major complains about families. She's the head of the science division. She's concerned, what if the virus returns? It's only been a few months since the last infected died, and they don't completely understand the disease yet.
And I'm a little mixed on the whole concept of this movie. It just seems insanely stupid to be moving people back in at this point.
It seems way premature.
But They would, wouldn't they?
Yeah.
All that empty
It's all
land,
that
all the
empty-
empty real estate, all those buildings and infrastructure, people would be moving back right away.
Yeah, and the British want to go back to Britain, you know.
Well, there are not that
So-
many British left, I wouldn't think.
Well, enough to fill this green zone,
Okay.
plus more. They're talking about more waiting, and
Yeah, it's absolutely stupid.
A lot of,
but
you know,
it's also
British-
very realistic.
you know, folks that were out of the country at the time,
Yeah.
or did manage to get away, are wanting to come back.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, Tammy and Andy get off the plane and are met by Don, who we met earlier. Don tells them that he keeps the power and water running. He practically runs the place and has full access. He tells them what happened to his wife and their mother, and he lies a little to make it sound like he didn't abandon them. Don still has nightmares about Alice.
See, they
opening
started
scene.
breaking into the bedroom, and he ran out and got away. Well, he listened to her getting screamed at. She was screaming and being attacked by zombies, and he ran away as a coward.
And it's kind of
But he
questionable
pretends
whether
to
he
them.
could have done anything, but he didn't try as hard as he could have.
Yeah.
He did flee. Yeah.
But he lies and said she was bit right away, and that's when he escaped, and there was absolutely nothing he could do.
Yeah.
So
Well,
he's kind of a coward, but realistically, he couldn't have done
realistically,
anything.
he probably would have just died too, but
Yeah.
Yeah. But he would have died heroically. rather than
That's okay,
rather than
then.
running like a coward. Yeah. Well, at night we can see from the lights just how small the safe zone really is in the city. Doyle, Flynn, and the other soldiers keep watch over the safe buildings. Andy complains that he doesn't have a picture of his dead mother even. So Tammy suggests the two of them sneak across the river, go to their house, and get one. Doyle, who's still on watch, sees them cross the bridge, and they get into the deserted, still trash-covered part of the city that still has bodies. They get a scooter, drive through the abandoned scenes that we saw in the first film. And they arrive at their former house, go inside, they get a photo and pack up some other stuff, goes upstairs and finds their mother, who's not dead at all.
What?
Yeah, she survived that attack and went home afterward, and she's been hiding out there.
But how?
Yeah. Well, the two kids run outside where the army is waiting for them. Alice is taken into custody as well. She's panicked and half insane, yet not seeming to be berserk. How does that happen after getting bit? Alice is screened, and they do several blood tests. Scarlett, the head of the science, says that Alice is definitely infected, but she can't explain why she's not a monster. She is, however, a carrier that can infect others. Scarlett says she could be the key to a cure, but her boss, who's the head of the whole military operation there, her boss Stone, says, well, they can run tests on her corpse just as well.
You got to wonder why somebody like that would be in charge. 'Cause that clearly a live subject is better than a dead one.
Mm-hmm. Well,
Oh, wow.
but for now, Scarlett trumps him because she's head of the science division. So, and Don is notified, of course, about what happened, and he doesn't know what to think about Alice being recovered. Tammy accuses Don of lying about Alice's death. Well, as far as he knew, she was completely overrun. Don goes to see Alice, who is strapped down to a table. They make up, and he kisses her. Whoops. And a few seconds later, he's fully infected. And, of course, Alice looks surprised.
Oops.
As he tears her apart. Yeah, and then we get a montage of Don infecting soldiers and other people on the way out, because he can freely pass through the security doors with the all-access badge that he's wearing. All the doors open for him. Yeah. Well, Stone orders a lockdown. Execute Code Red. Tammy and Andy find out what a zombie looks like before Scarlett lets them out. She thinks they may carry the immunity that Alice had, but they all get separated in the crowd. There's a quarantine room, and Don breaks in, and there's pandemonium in the crowded room as the infection spreads from person to person, and they start going berserk.
They put like all the survivors in one big auditorium.
Yeah, and here's Don.
Oops.
Yeah. Still with his full access.
It goes very badly, very quickly.
Yeah. Andy gets away through an air vent, and Tammy was not in that room. She was outside. Well, everyone runs outside to where Doyle and snipers try to decide who's infected and who isn't from the rooftops. Stone just eventually orders them to shoot everyone. And the snipers do their job, and a whole lot of uninfected people do die.
Killed them all.
Yeah. Andy soon meets up with Tammy and Scarlett. Doyle is locked in with them, and he wants to get out of there. Flynn, a helicopter guy, calls Doyle and warns him that the Air Force is going to firebomb in a matter of minutes. The government is just going to destroy everything to sanitize it.
It's the only way to be sure.
Yeah. Well, Doyle, Scarlett, Sam, Tammy, and Andy cross the bridge into the unsafe zone, leaving the hordes of infected behind them. They all get to a field and rest, and we do see the city gets firebombed. They do make it out just in time. And there are several dozen infected approaching where they're hiding now. Flynn comes in his helicopter, but he can't carry that many people away. Sam panics, grabs the helicopter. Flynn chops up a bunch of them with his chopper blades, but not all of them.
Chopper blades? You said chopper blades.
Chopper blades. Copter.
They were, weren't
they become chopper blades, yeah. And there is much running and shooting as the four try to get away from the pursuing infected mob. Doyle gets them into a car and pushes it to get it started just before he's set on fire by flamethrowers, by soldiers that are going sweeping through and cleaning up the mess. Well, there's just three of them now, the kids and Scarlett. They make their way through the subway. Scarlett tries to lead the other two through the darkness with her night vision. They have no flashlights, only a night vision. And there is much screaming and chaos. Scarlett is beaten to death by Don, who has appeared from nowhere. Because open access, he got out of the city. Don jumps up on top of Andy and bites him. Tammy shoots Don repeatedly until he's dead. She chases Andy for a short way, but he doesn't turn crazy. He's immune also, a carrier. But Tammy lies and says, "Oh, you're not a carrier." The two walk into Wembley Stadium, where Flynn has parked the helicopter. He lets them board and flies them to safety. And 28 days later, we see another outbreak, this time in Paris, and this time it doesn't look like it's going to be contained. Hopefully they're still working on that cure.
Paris is not an island.
No, it isn't.
It was all right, but I never really brought the idea of bringing back civilians when so little of the country was under their control. Half the soldiers are jerks, and the other half don't follow orders. I see no reasonable reason why the soldiers would blindly just kill everyone. Unlike a normal zombie virus, you can tell if this virus has infected someone within a few seconds. Stand there and look at them for 10 seconds. If they don't attack you, let them go. A healthy-looking person who can stand still for 30 seconds is fine. Even more so if they're driving a car.
Yeah, that should be a clear task.
The music was fine, although not up to the first one. The acting was decent, even though several of the characters were not very rational acting. The zombie makeup and effects were excellent, but overall, in my opinion, the film focused entirely too much on the children.
Yeah, and overall, just not as good as the first one.
Yeah. I think from what they're saying about the third one, they're going to go back to the original movie characters and continue off with them.
Perhaps that will be
28
better again.
years later, though, could be a whole different world.
Yeah.
Guess we'll find out in a while.
In a while.
And then, as always, we watched a short film. What did we watch?
Well, I've been looking to lose a few pounds.
Well, this one is Worth the Wait from 2023. Written and directed by Vincent Dormani, stars Cielo Gomez and Austin Pizza. I wonder if that's an autocorrect. 7 minutes, 33 seconds, and you can watch this. We got a link there to let you watch it on YouTube. What happens?
Well, a girl is on a diet. She is losing. We see her progress log, but not very quickly. She's not satisfied. She wants to fit into that little black dress for the prom, but she's not going to make it in time. Well, then she finds a mysterious package on her doorstep with a weight loss drink inside. Watch the pounds melt off, it says. So she tries it, and it does work.
Yeah, but there's more.
But there's a few side effects.
Well, you got to ask at this point here, was it worth the wait?
Well,
it's always clear what's happening. The lighting and sound effects are good, and the creature, there is a creature, is disturbing, especially as it walks through the darkness. We're not quite clear on why this is happening, but it's still fun to watch.
Yeah, it was a good one. Well made.
Not a lot of explanation in 7 minutes.
It's all right.
Interesting creature, though.
Yeah.
Speaking of interesting creatures, we watched Atragon from 1963, directed by Ishiro Honda and Shui Matsubayashi, written by Shinichi Sekizawa, Shunro Oshikawa, and Shigeru Komatsuzaki. Stars Tadao Takashima, Yoko Fujiyama, Ken Uehara, and Yu Fujuki.
You may guess by those names that it is a Japanese film
No.
from the golden era of Godzilla movies.
Yeah.
Comes a different kaiju.
This was color, wasn't it? I think
Yeah.
it was.
Yeah.
Hour and 34 minutes, trailer in the show notes, and you got to watch this trailer.
Mm-hmm.
We watched the trailer after the movie, and oh my gosh, it makes it look so good.
Yeah.
Well, spoiler free, it's a movie full of big ideas and bad science. There's a lot going on with subs, sea monsters, freeze rays, and a lost civilization out for blood. I can't honestly say it's held up well, but it was still fun to watch if you want a fun popcorn movie.
Yeah, it was.
There's a monster in it, but I'd barely call this horror.
It's pushing it.
Well, what happens?
Well, spoilery synopsis. A man touches his cab driver who won't stop, and the contact burns him. Meanwhile, a photographer works with a model. It's a bikini shoot at the beach at night. Something scary comes up out of the water and scares the whole group. Sumusu gets a picture of the thing before it goes back in the sea. And suddenly the cab from before drives off the end of the pier. It steams and bubbles as if the water was acid. And then credits roll.
Oh, there was a monster already.
In the daytime, they pull the car out of the bay. The detectives and reporters ask Sumusu for his story yet again, but the police still don't believe him. Yet there is a photo, and there's a woman getting off a ship, and Sumusu thinks she's got the right look that he's wanted in a model. But she drives off before he can talk to her. He does get her driver's license number, though. An engineer was kidnapped this morning. The man last night was an engineer, too. In both cases, the kidnapper was described as steamy.
These people are hot, steamy, smoky.
Yes,
What's up with that?
Something weird going on there. A reporter comes to the owner of a shipping company and wants to talk. And they do talk about an uncompleted submarine project from the war. The commander of that final mission, Commander
Jinguji.
Jinguji is still alive. Makoto, the man's secretary, is also Jinjuji's daughter. The shipping company guy is a former military guy. So, the war is over, and he wants to move past the war. And this Captain Jinjuji, they think, has not moved past the end of the war.
This was the war that ended 18 years before the movie,
Yeah,
so it's
previous to
not
this.
that long.
Mm-hmm. Sumusu comes to the same place, since Makoto is the girl he's been trying to track down. Makoto tells her boss that a scary man has been following her, and she doesn't like it. The car that is driving them has the same steamy driver from before. He wants the admiral, the former admiral. It's another kidnapping, but this time Sumusu and his friend get involved. They are taken as well. The man says they are going to the Empress of the Mu Empire, a legendary country from 10,000 years ago. Well, except the men fight back, and the kidnapper dives into the ocean to get away. There's a big submarine way out in the ocean. But Sumusu and the admiral and everyone else gets away. As the detective questions them, Admiral Kamusi.
Just go with it.
Oh, God. Kamuji. Here it's... I'm so confused with these names. He gets a package delivered from the kingdom of Mu. It's a reel of film. This is the active admiral, like current.
The real admiral.
Yeah.
It's not the retired admiral.
Right. The film contains evidence of the existence of Mu, a continent that sunk beneath the Pacific. The A403 submarine is in the film as well, and the tape says that Captain Jinguji
is currently at work building an even more powerful submarine. The military calls on the United Nations. They find the whole idea of Mu to be absurd and do nothing. Out at sea, a submarine uses a strange heat weapon to destroy a ship. Mu has declared war on the rest of the world. Venice and Hong Kong are completely wiped out, which really, they wiped out these two huge cities, and that really just doesn't go anywhere.
Yeah, there's not many repercussions or anything from that.
But
Thank
now,
you for taking over, because I can't say Kamuchu.
Those names are not your thing.
I can't say kaiju for sure.
But now the United Nations believes it all. Up on the space station, people push buttons.
And that is so
This
weird.
scene is weird.
It's such a cool-looking space station and a cool little scene.
They do nothing, and we never see the
we
space
never
station
see it
again.
again.
The space station has nothing to do with the plot. Why the hell did they put that in there?
It's like they edited it out. There was supposed to be more later that didn't. It's on the cutting room floor.
We got the scene of the space station. Let's use it.
Yeah.
The UN's greatest submarine, the Red Satan, pushes a Mu sub back to... I can't imagine a United Nations sub being called the Red Satan.
Yeah.
Pursues a Mu sub back to its undersea base. The Mu ship goes much deeper than the American sub can, so they have to give up and turn around. Except the sub is crushed by the water pressure. Oh, that never happens.
No.
Well, the Japanese military is afraid to use an H-bomb, but they have their terror gun, but they don't know its limitations. Does the Admiral know where Jinguji is? They need the captain's new submarine. Admiral Kasumi says Captain Jinguji refused his orders and is dishonorable. They capture one of Jinguji's agents, and the man says he'll take them to the captain. Meanwhile, in the city of Mu, Agent 23 reports that everything is going according to plan. The Admiral, Makoto, Susumu, journalist Uno, and the rest are on the boat to go see Jinguji. They disembark, and soon Makoto meets her father, the lost captain. Jinguji says the first test run of the new super sub will be tomorrow. They go to see the sub, and it's huge. It also has this big drill on one end.
So the scenario is it's this renegade military guy who doesn't think the war is over is built this mega super ultra sub weapon. This can't be good.
He's like Japanese Captain Nemo.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Well, eventually the sub launches. Then they all go outside and watch the sub come up out of the water, except it keeps going up. It flies as well. It's a massive success. Captain Jinguji says tomorrow they'll try the freeze gun. Well, the Admiral tells Jinguji that Japan has formally abolished all war, but the captain takes offense to that. The war never ends. They argue about politics for a while, and it's not clear that Jinguji is going to be a good guy on this. Makoto, his daughter, is disappointed in him, and that sways his opinion. The reporter, Uno, turns out that he's an agent of Mu, and he kidnaps Makoto and Susumu. He's planted explosives, and they go off before anyone even knows about them. There's a huge dance down in the throne room of Mu, and the Empress watches the show.
Yeah, there were a lot of extras in this movie.
There were.
Yeah.
Susumu and Makoto are in the center of it. They're going to be sacrificed to Munda, their god. They look out the window and see Munda, a huge snake creature. Susumu and the kidnapped engineers are put to work. Back on Jinguji's island, they try to dig out the buried submarine. In Japan, a bunch of Mu fighter planes attack, and the world's capitals are threatened. The new submarine is buried, but otherwise checks out as okay. Jinguji gives the order, and the ship drills right through the wreckage. It's like one of those Journey to the Center of the Earth machines.
Yeah, and the airlock and everything is all destroyed and everything, but they just clear out the room, and the who needs to leave gets on the sub, and they just drill out through the wall.
Yep.
Yeah, it floods, but whatever, they're done.
It's a submarine. It's
yeah,
okay.
It's a submarine. Yeah.
Well, they fly to the location of the Mu Empire and then submerge to find it. Well, the clock strikes 12 and Mu attacks in force. The whole cities collapse into sinkholes. Munda rises from the depths and shoots its laser breath at the warships, destroying them easily. Godzilla-like.
Mm-hmm.
As the High Priest of Mu gloats, the new super sub approaches. The Empress comes to the cells and says the prisoners will be sacrificed to Munda, but Susumu threatens to blow them all up. He gets the Empress as a hostage, and they put on pressurized suits, but Munda is outside waiting for them.
And that was just the lamest bit of security for the Empress there. I mean, she personally goes to see the prisoners. They're not restrained. They're in a cell, and she walks in front of the guards. There's a couple guards hanging out, behind her, and a couple more in the hall. And of course, the prisoners grab the Empress. She's standing right there.
Surprise, got a hostage.
Yeah, well, that was hard.
Yeah, well, as the submarine fires at the huge snake outside, the characters swim to the sub in the confusion. Empress Mu and Captain Jinguji argue over who's going to surrender to whom. The captain gives the order to dive and destroy the capital of Mu. Munda tries to grab the ship, but they electrify the hull. Then they fire a freeze gun at Munda, and that does the trick. Munda is no longer a threat. How do you shoot a freeze gun underwater?
Not very well.
Wouldn't that
The water would freeze.
Yeah, it would.
Yeah.
Well, the sub starts to burrow through the earth toward Mu. The priest wonders how they managed to get into their power generator room. The men from the sub shoot the Mu people and freeze them all solid. The soldiers set their explosive devices and run back to the submarine. The sub then backs out through the tunnel it made and surfaces. When the explosives go off, Mu is destroyed. The Empress then jumps overboard and vanishes into the smoke. Never see her again.
Goes to be with her people.
Yeah, reading the story, it sounds like it was, something a 5-year-old made up.
Yeah.
It just goes all over the place.
It does, yeah. It's crazy.
The miniatures in the film are really good for the time period. The big ship is kind of neat. There's a huge cast, especially in the Mu throne room scenes. It's really, really ambitious, but also kind of drags a little in the middle. And what was up with that space station appeared in just one scene and had no relevance at all. It is an interesting film. It really doesn't hold up very well, but it's fun to watch just because it has so much going on. It's got a giant monster, futuristic submarine, freeze rays, really, really bad science.
You don't believe the submarine can really fly like that?
No.
Okay. You're right.
It flies.
Bad
It's
science.
a submarine. It drills through the earth. It goes everywhere. Didn't
Yeah.
go into space, though. They had a space station for that. It's kind of fun and kind of awful at the same time. If it sounds even remotely interesting, I would recommend it.
Yeah, I would too if you're into that. That era of Japanese films with the Godzillas and so forth.
It's awful, but it's a good kind
But
of awful.
but it's a fun awful. Yeah.
Speaking of awful, The Killing of a Sacred Deer from 2017, directed by Yorgos Lanthimos, written by him and also Efthymios Philippou. Oh my goodness, the names this week.
Mm-hmm.
Stars Colin Farrell, Nicole Kidman, and Barry Keoghan. 2 hours and 1 minute. Only seemed like 8 hours.
We're of a split opinion on this one too. I liked it more than Brian did.
Okay, we'll talk later. Spoiler free, it's slow and tedious, yet fascinating at the same time. A strong cast really helped a lot. There's a strange element to the dialogue. It's very stilted and polite, which along with a few other strange things around the edges gives the whole thing a vaguely surreal feeling. Overall, we liked it more than disliked it, although it felt a bit long.
And I liked it more than Brian did.
Yeah, that's an understatement. Okay. Yeah, I was confused while I was watching it, and then when it was done, I'm like,
You were still confused?
that's it?
Yeah, that was it.
Yeah. Normally, my judgment of a movie is if I'm thinking about it 2 days later, it's a good movie.
Yeah.
I was still picking this one apart 2 days later.
Oh, okay.
It's not a... Well, what happens?
Well, I was kind of still thinking about it 2 days later. Well, we open on some heart surgery, and credits roll. Stephen Murphy is the doctor in this operating room. He meets up with young Martin afterwards. Martin apologizes 4 or 5 times for being late. And I've just lost my place.
He's very, very polite.
Yes, overly polite. Everyone is... The conversation is so polite in this. Yeah. Well, Stephen gives Martin a very expensive watch, and Martin asks for a hug. And like I said, they're oddly formal. Martin goes home and has dinner with his family, and that's weirdly formal as well. Young Bob needs a haircut, and they politely discuss that. It's just everything is polite. Yeah. As does Sister Kim. Later, when they have sex... Wife Anna pretends to be unconscious with a general anesthetic. Just
You want to do the doctor
it.
thing again?
Yeah.
Yes. General anesthetic this time? Okay.
Yeah. So she flops back and just lays there. Well, later he introduces Martin as one of his daughter's schoolmates to Matthew as anesthesiologist. And just everything seems a little bit off with these people.
At this point, I was wondering, is this somebody's dream? Is this even real?
Yeah, it's real, sort
It
of.
doesn't feel real.
Yeah. Well, Stephen invites Martin to come meet the family. He's never met any of them before. Kim sings for Martin, and they're all weirdly friendly and polite to Martin. Stephen tells Anna that Martin's father died in a car crash and he went to the funeral. Martin invites Stephen over for dinner tomorrow night, and they end up watching a movie afterward until Martin goes to bed abruptly. So Stephen is left with Martin's mother, who remembers his hands from the hospital. And she soon starts kissing his hands and coming onto him, and he leaves.
The surgeon's hands.
Yeah. Well, the next morning, Martin is waiting for Stephen at the hospital. Martin thinks his father should have come out of that surgery that Stephen performed. Martin says his chest hurts and he's afraid he inherited a heart problem. So Stephen orders some heart tests for Martin to make him feel better, and there's nothing wrong with him. But more and more, Martin is stalking the doctor. He seems kind of obsessed. At a picnic, Matthew tells Stephen that he saw Martin hanging around Stephen's car. Kim says she saw Martin after choir practice.
Stalker.
Yeah. Well, the next morning, little Bob says his legs are numb and he can't move them or stand up. Stephen and Anna rush him to the hospital. After an examination, Bob is fine. Everything checks out okay. So he's fine, walks out. On the way to the car, he falls down. So maybe he's not that fine. And they do even more tests. Doctor says he should be okay. And that night, Kim and Martin go riding on his motorcycle. Martin comes to visit Bob the next day. And Stephen comes in.
No, Martin.
Martin is visiting Bob the kid.
Okay.
Yeah. Martin comes in and, Stephen comes in, and Martin wants to talk to him upstairs, meet me upstairs. Well, Martin calmly tells Stephen that if Stephen doesn't kill one member of his family, his entire family will die. Stephen gets to choose which one to kill. It's only a fair trade for Stephen killing his father. Martin explicitly explains how they will die. Starts out with paralysis and, the symptoms they'll go through. And Stephen has Martin removed by security. Well, Bob won't eat. That's one of the symptoms that Martin said there would be. Stephen tries to force Bob a donut. Kim sees Martin every night, but her parents don't know about it. She wants to have sex, but he prefers to just leave. The doctors think Bob simply got a psychosomatic disorder. It's all in his head. They can't find anything wrong with him. But he's not eating, and he doesn't look good. Stephen takes Bob out for a drag, dropping him on the hard floor several times.
You will walk.
Yeah, he's rough with him, thinking he's faking it. Tells Bob a very weird story about his own father's genitals.
What?
Yeah. And then he threatens Bob and says he's going to make him eat his own hair if this is all an act. Anna says, it's all going to be fine. At choir practice the next day, Kim passes out. It starts with her now. Things are not going to be fine. She can't walk and she won't eat either. So Stephen goes to Martin's house, but no one's home. Anna and Steve talk about Martin. Stephen's been seeing him for about 6 months. He knew Martin was unbalanced. Stephen said he had been drinking a little before the operation on Martin's father, but he didn't kill him. Kim talks to Martin on the phone, and even from the hospital, she has no idea that Martin is behind all their problems, because this family doesn't communicate that way. Kim gets out of bed and walks to the window to wave at Martin, but Anna doesn't see him. After this, Anna forbids Kim from ever talking to him again, but Kim is argumentative. Anna takes her phone. And, at this point, there could be some explanation. Anna could say,
Martin's a bad guy.
Martin's
Stay away
a bad
from
guy.
him.
He's dangerous. He's threatening the family. He's dangerous to us. Something along those lines. No,
He may have
doesn't.
poisoned both of you.
Yeah.
We don't know.
Yeah. No, she doesn't tell any of that. Just takes her phone away. Well, Stephen gets to the hospital to bring in nationwide experts to work on the problem. Anna goes to see Martin at his house. Ever since your husband killed my father, he's been flirting with my mother. And she asks why she has to suffer for something her husband did 3 years ago. And he replies, I don't know if this is fair, but it's the only thing that I can think of that's close to justice. Well, the hospital director says there's nothing more they can do for the kids. They should be transferred to home.
Okay, just a reminder here.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, Martin has said that the father has to kill someone in his family, either his wife or one of the two kids.
Or they're all going to die.
Or they're all going to die. So that's really the center of the whole movie. You make this choice.
Mm-hmm. And Anna talks to Matthew and asks if he was the anesthesiologist in Martin's father's operation. She wants to see the dead man's medical files. And she has to work out a little trade with him in order to get
Stephen kill the man?
Yeah. Well, he tells her that Stephen had been drinking that day, and that wasn't unusual at the time. In return for the information, Anna gives Matthew something he always wanted.
Matthew's a bit of a perv.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, the kids move home, hospital beds and all. Anna comments on Stephen's beautiful hands, because she heard that from Martin and, Martin's mother. She clearly blames Stephen for the whole situation, and he understandably gets upset. Well, there's been an escalation. Stephen now has Martin tied up in the basement. He shows Anna. She doesn't say a word. Martin says a clean slate is just one murder away. Martin seems kind of psychotic, but he takes a bite bite out of his own arm after he bites Stephen.
I bit you. It's only fair that I bite myself.
Yeah,
justice.
Just to be fair. Yeah, he's all about fairness. Yeah. Well, Kim and Bob, the kids, talk, and they seem to know exactly what's going on. Bob drags himself downstairs, cuts most of his own hair off. Stephen asks the school principal which of the two kids he likes best. So he's starting to think on this. Got to kill one of them. Yeah, he's entertaining the idea. Anna tells Stephen to pick a child. They're still young enough to have another one. Okay, it's kind of cold. Kim talks to Martin about sacrificing her little brother, and she'll run away with him. She drags herself out of the house and down the street.
Now, when you say drags, that you kind of can picture, pulling them along and with the arms and the leg. They like slither down the steps like a snake head first, and it's just weird.
Yeah, it is. Well, the next day, Anna, the mom, lets Martin go. Bob starts bleeding from the eyes, a sign that the end is near. That's the last symptom. And later, we see that Anna and both kids are gagged and duct taped with pillowcases over their heads. Stephen pulls a stocking cap over his own head and spins around, holding a rifle. Pin the tail on the donkey. He fires. Doesn't hit anyone. Spins again. Fires.
You got 3 people in a room. You're spinning around, pulling the trigger. You're not going to hit anybody.
Spins again. Except he finally does. He makes a perfect shot, makes a kill shot, and shoots Bob. And then it cuts to the diner. Martin comes to the diner, sees Stephen, Anna, and Kim. Kim is eating again, and they kind of give each other the eye. The 3 of them walk out without saying a word to Martin.
This is a weird movie.
Justice has been served.
It's weird in every second of the movie.
It's very weird, yeah.
The entire movie
made it interesting.
Is very awkward. Very awkward. I would say maybe that's the best word for this movie is awkward.
It's an awkward one, yeah.
It's also very slow and very robotic.
Well, and some of the things they come up with, too. Like, I remember there's a very formal fundraising kind of dinner. And they're all dressed up with this gala, where they're dresses and tuxedos. And friends of Stephen and Anna are, they're chatting, how's your family? And Stephen says that, his daughter, she started menstruating this week, and...
Thanks for sharing that.
If you ask about how someone's kid is, you don't ever need to hear that. Really.
Nobody wants to know these things.
Yeah, just strange things, but so polite and formal about it.
Yeah. And I got that mentioned here too. The weirdly robotic monotone dialogue is very off-putting. It sounds like all of them are speaking a second language or something.
Kinda, yeah.
None of these characters seems remotely human or realistic. Once both kids are in the hospital, it starts picking up a little bit, but the weird dialogue continues throughout.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely love how the kids drag themselves down the stairs, and the parents don't even offer to help in any way. And the shotgun thing at the end was just bizarrely stupid. Anna is not going to go win the Mother of the Year awards. After a while, she knew exactly what was happening. Every mother I've ever met would have volunteered herself to be the victim.
And it's
She's
not
like,
that kind of person.
pick one. We can have another.
Yeah.
How did they explain Bob's death to anyone? The father shot him in the head. There were far more natural-looking ways they could have killed him. No one went to jail at the end, so they must have done something with the body. They also never explained how Martin did whatever it was that he did. Was it poison? Black magic? Hypnosis?
Don't know.
Don't know.
No, we don't know.
It's a horribly slow and tedious film. It's definitely disturbing, and there's a lot to think about and question when it's over.
I liked it.
I didn't.
Okay, I give it a thumbs up.
Maybe the word pretentious fits in here. I don't know what the director was thinking when he had everybody talk like this.
To make it interesting. Make it different.
But
make
it
it weird.
didn't.
Make it unsettling. And
It's
surreal.
unsettling. That's for sure, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's it for this week. Over at HorrorBulletin.com, you can read our reviews of Overlord from 2018, which starts out as an intense war movie, coasts along for a while, and then progresses into an action-heavy horror movie. There were a lot of practical effects, which we thought were pretty great. It takes a little while, but it was kind of worth the wait. Mm-hmm. We also watched 1958's Monster on the Campus, which was kind of a Jekyll and Hyde story with really bad science.
Bad science.
Other than the bad science, it's a decent movie. There are some thrills, chills, and suspense, and a story that moves very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Like those old movies that barely take an hour and 15 minutes.
Yeah, that was fun checking out.
Yeah. All right, well, tune in next week where we're going to have more stuff. What are we going to have?
Next week is Serial Killer Week.
Ooh, that sounds like fun.
Ordinary people doing bad things. No magic, no monsters, no aliens, just people.
More or less.
More or less.
See, we got 7.
Yeah.
Kevin Spacey. Are we allowed to say his name anymore?
We are. Yes.
Zodiac. Kind of a somewhat fictionalized account of a true story.
Mm-hmm.
The Collector.
Not based on a true story.
Boy, we're going to have words about The Collector.
Yeah, we are. But again, it's a real guy.
I Saw the Devil. It's not a real guy.
Well, not real. An ordinary person.
No, The Collector is completely fictional.
Not supernatural. Yes, fictional. Yes, that's the word I'm looking for.
The Korean film I Saw the Devil?
Also fictional, but, ordinary people.
Yeah, and Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer.
Which was based on a real guy.
Based on a real guy, yeah.
Uh-huh.
Sounds like a serial fun week.
Yeah.
All right, and I'm Brian.
I'm Kevin.
And we'll see you next week.
See ya.